Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen, wal'aqibatu lil-muttaqeen, wa la udwana illa ala al-zalimin. Wa ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wahdahu la sharika lah, wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluh, sallallahu alayhi wa ala alihi wa ashabihi, wa man da'a bi da'watihi wa istanna bi sunnatihi ila yawm ad-din, wa sallam tasliman kathira. Amma ba'd. فأوصيكم ونفسي بتقوى الله عز وجل والسمع والطاعة. ويقول الحق سبحانه: أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم، يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله ولتنظر نفس ما قدمت لغد واتقوا الله إن الله خبير بما تعملون ولا تكونوا كالذين نسوا الله فأنساهم أنفسهم أولئك هم الفاسقون. All praises are due to Allah, Lord of the worlds. And surely the best reward ultimately is for those who have taqwa. And surely there is no animosity except for the oppressor. And I bear witness that Allah is one and has no partners, and that Muhammad, the son of Abdullah, is his servant and his last messenger. May Allah always and constantly send peace and blessings to Muhammad, to his family, to his companions, to all those who call to his way, establish his sunnah to the day of judgment. As to what follows, I begin by reminding myself and cautioning myself and you to have taqwa, that we should develop the consciousness of Allah, al-khawf wal-raja', that we fear Allah and we hope in the mercy of Allah. And this quality develops a type of wiqaya, a shield around us, a spiritual shield, to protect us not only in Islamic affairs, in masjids and centers, but also in our normal life. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed us in the last revelation in bringing to us signs, verses from above 7 heavens that establish the importance of taqwa and then lead us into activities that are relevant to our lives today. And in Surah Al-Hashr, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has revealed, or you believe, have the consciousness of Allah, and let every soul look to what it put forward for tomorrow and fear Allah. Surely Allah is well aware of all that you do. And be not as those who forgot Allah, and so He made them forget themselves. Surely they are the disobedient ones. And so Allah Azza wa Jal reminds us of the importance of coming close to Him. But this reminder that we get in a verse revealed over 1400 years ago is of utmost importance to us today. Because as we end the summer season and start to go into the fall, people start to think about time. They start to order their lives. They start to structure the months for the coming years. And so time becomes important. But Allah Azza wa Jal told us already that every soul needs to look to ghadan, look ahead to the future. What are you doing for the future? What seeds are you planting for your children? What is your relationship, not just with the present, but with the past, and then moving in transition into the future? And this is so important to us today, because the world now is being pulled by electronic forces, by a media, by a type of internet, a cyberspace, which controls the minds of many people throughout the world. And you will see as you travel in many lands, when you see people, young people especially, on street corners, walking along, you'll see many of the people have their head down looking at something. They're looking into another world. And this world that they're looking into is not necessarily tied with reality. In most cases, it has a connection with reality. But it puts us in a false reality that we need to be constantly aware of. In the past few weeks, the eyes of the world in cyberspace was glued upon Brazil, the Olympic Games that brought people together from around the planet. The Olympic Games, this famous celebration of athletes, this celebration of nations, which in most cases today is not necessarily connected to the very reality on the ground, even around the Olympics itself. And when we look at the concept of the Olympics, and we go back into this and try to see where we stand in relationship to this, we find that in 490 BC approximately, it is reported that the Greek nation had defeated the Persian army at a huge battle, a place called Marathon. Remember these words. They defeated the Persians in a place called Marathon. And the Greeks in their capital of Athens were in a state of fear. They didn't know what would happen. They thought that their lives were over. They didn't know whether to run or whether to go forward. It was a critical moment. And at that point, a man, Phidippides, from the Greek army, he ran from Marathon 26 miles. He ran approximately 26 miles in the intense heat of the summer. But he continued on, carrying this message, and came back to the people, announced to them, he shouted at the top of his voice, Nike. Remember these words. He shouted Nike for the so-called goddess of victory. And when he said Nike, it meant victory. We have been victorious. And he dropped dead. So the messenger, Phidippides, what he represents in the original Olympics, the original concept is courage, heroism, self-sacrifice, and a messenger who was carrying an important message that actually affected the lives of the very people who he was connected with. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has also informed us and given us our own understanding of messages. And it comes in different places in the Quran. We find in Surah Al-Qasas, verse 20, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us, وَجَاءَ رَجُلٌ مِّنْ أَقْصَى الْمَدِينَةِ يَسْعَى. Allah said, a man came from the furthest outskirts of the city. He was running. He's a messenger. And the verse continues and says, he was carrying a message for Musa alayhi salam, informing him that the people had gathered together, the council had met, and they were going to take his life. So it was a warning, life and death warning that he was bringing. And at the end of the verse, he says, Inni laka minan nasihin. He said, verily, I am to you an advisor. And nasiha is not just advice, it's support. It's a support. So he was supporting Musa alayhi salam, he was warning him, he was advising him. And surprisingly enough, and this maybe is part of the i'jaz al-Lughawi, it is part of the miracle, the linguistic miracle of the Quran, in Surah Yasin, verse 20. It's the same number. Qasas 20, Yasin 20. In Surah Yasin, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has revealed to us, وَجَاءَ مِنْ أَقْصَى الْمَدِينَةِ رَجُلٌ يَسْعَى قَالَ يَا قَوْمِ اتَّبِعُوا الْمُرْسَلِينَ اتَّبِعُوا مَنْ لَا يَسْأَلُكُمْ أَجْرًا وَهُمْ مُهْتَدُونَ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed, then there came running from the furthest part of the city a man saying, O my people, obey the messengers. Obey those who do not ask reward of you and who are guided themselves. So this was a general message as well. Ittabi'ul mursaleen. telling people that they should not be following their nafs, not be following their politics, but they should follow the messengers. That the real leadership is the one that guides us to the revelation, that guides us to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Follow those who are not benefiting from you. They're not asking you a reward. They're doing it for Allah. And they are guided themselves. So the messenger that they're supposed to follow is not just one who's talking, but he's practicing. These are very important concepts for us today in the world that we are living in. The runners, the messengers are serious people. They are warners. They are symbols of courage. They are bringing critical messages where life and death are involved. And so in the time of Musa alayhi salam, and for all times, the messenger comes in the Quran. He runs, yes, so he's running, bringing the message. But the Olympic world that we see, the messengers are running. And they're running according to what was supposed to be a serious thing, as it was in the time of Pheidippides. But now they are running only for a piece of gold. Or they're running for national pride, to feel nationalism. And amongst the runners there were people of different types of understandings. There were some who were actually standing up for their people. And we can say, alhamdulillah, that there was a message. There was amongst the people in the Brazilian Olympics, there was an individual in the marathon race. This is the deep part of it. It was in the marathon race, that when the marathon race was over, people running in the name of the original marathon, 26 miles. But the person who came number 2 and who gained the silver medal, Feyisan Lilesa of Ethiopia, of the Oromo people, he crossed the line and he put his hand in an X for the whole world to see. 1 billion people saw this man make X. This was the message. He was reminding the people that there's something more than just running a race. And he reminded them of what is happening in Ethiopia with the Oromo people who are suffering and being persecuted at the hands of the government. And so he sacrificed possibly his medal, possibly his life, possibly his freedom for the message. And that is the concept. And we need messengers today. We need messengers because there are things happening in this world as we look into cyberspace, as our children are caught traveling around the universe. The earth is talking back to us. And it is reported that July past was the hottest month on written record. There has never been a month hotter than the month of July. And this heat has caused a number of major calamities in the world. Scorching temperatures around the world. Even here in North America, the Southwest is caught in what is called the heat dome. And the heat dome is causing wildfires in California. And they are describing these fires as they've never seen anything like this before. Huge mountains of fire coming down. One of the fires, the blue chip fire, which is still going right now, when it was at its height, 80,000 people had to run immediately, sometimes with the fire at their back. A message is coming to them. But will the messengers come who tie it to the revelation? The heat is also causing water. It is causing earthquakes in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. A terrible flood. To the point where they said this is the worst flood in living memory. We have no record of this. We never saw anything like this before hit our people. Thousands of homes destroyed. And so history being made throughout the world. And the Prophet ﷺ did not speak from himself. He was inspired by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. His words were not just for his people at the time, but also for us. And he gave us a message. And it's something that we as an ummah, from an individual level to a national level to an ummah level, need to be aware of. In Abu Dawud, in the Sahih of Abu Dawud, the Prophet ﷺ is reported to have said, Ummati hadihi ummatun mar'umah. ليس عليها عذاب في الآخرة عذابها في الدنيا الفتن والزلازل والقتل. The Prophet ﷺ said, this my nation is a nation that has mercy. Its punishment is not in the next life, but the punishment is in the dunya. Fitan, zalazil, qatl. Fitan is the plural of fitna. A trial, tribulation, a gray area, a confusion. And Sadaqa Rasulullah, a confusion which way to go, especially for the younger generation. A gray area, a temptation, a fitna temptation. Look at the temptations we carry around on our handheld devices. But also, zalazil, earthquakes or natural calamities, which are striking the whole of humanity. Muslims in particular, we are feeling the brunt of this. Natural catastrophes. And finally, qatl, genocide, murder. And it would happen, wa'iyadu billah, and it has hit our nation. These are warning signs to us. Before it is too late, we cannot sit here and not think about what is happening in Syria right now, in Aleppo, on the ground to the people. You can't just sit here. You have to do something. We cannot just sit here and forget about Kashmir. What is going on the ground in Burma, to the Rohingya peoples, to the Oromo people in Ethiopia, to the Central African Republic, to many places in Gaza and Palestine right now, as quiet as they try to make Palestine appear. It is the largest prison in the world. You cannot forget this. We have to do something, and we cry for change. We cry for change on all different levels, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has clearly informed us, إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يُغَيِّرُ مَا بِقَوْمٍ حَتَّى يُغَيِّرُ مَا بِأَنفُسِهِمْ. Allah will not change the condition of a people until they change that which is in themselves. That is the basis of the change. And we see in the life of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, 13 years in Mecca. Torture, insult, murder, exile. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave them power in the land. Their belief was strengthened. Their characters were developed. They made the sacrifice. They humbled themselves to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and to each other. Then Allah gave them power. Many times the people, especially the young people, they want the power. They want Medina before Mecca. They want the power, the authority on the earth, and the character hasn't changed. The heart hasn't changed. The heart is still rough and tough. The heart is not soft for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The heart contains pride, tribalism, hatred, negativity. This is not the heart of the Prophet ﷺ. This is not the heart of the companions, who were so fast to forgive, who were so fast to make treaties. But the change begins from within. And so I leave you with a few important points. Number one, that we need, above all, to return to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to increase our taqwa, our consciousness. And we need to separate Islam from culture. Our culture tells us one thing. As Arab, as Asian, as African, as European, as American, our culture is telling us something. How do you get married? How do you deal with your children? How do you deal with your leadership? How do you function in a masjid? Your culture's talking to you. But the culture is not always Islamic. And so separate Islam from culture. Number two, at-taqarrub ila Allah. Constantly come close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Let all of our actions be based upon closeness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and not political objectives. Not political objectives. Yes, we have to function in this world. But in the back of it is your intention. Because the Prophet ﷺ said, إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ وَإِنَّمَا لِكُلِّ امْرِئٍ مَا نَوَى. Your deeds are based on your intentions. And every person will get exactly what they intend. Number three, a focus on character. Our character. Our sunnah is not just about sunnah clothes or sunnah food, but the character. It is our character. How do we treat each other? How do we treat our families? How do we treat non-Muslims? Who are we? This is crucial now. The eyes of the world is looking at us. Every newspaper is looking at us. Every program is looking. What are these Muslims going to do next? What are they going to do? You get on an airplane, you go anywhere, you're Muslim, they're looking at you. How are you going to act? The Prophet ﷺ said in the Muwatta of Imam Malik, verily I have been sent to complete the best in character. It is the character which is the crucial part for the Muslims. Next, and this is especially here in the West, healthy, empowered families. Healthy, empowered families. One of the areas that we have overlooked is healthy, empowered families. What is happening now in our community, as I travel through the land, just in the previous week, I was in Dublin, Ireland. And there in Ireland, the Muslim community, in a faraway place, you never expect to see Muslims dealing with them. What is the main problem that they're asking about? The majority of the community are young people. What is their problem? I need to get married. I can't find a brother. The brother said, I need to get married. I can't find a sister. So if you have brothers and sisters and they can't find each other, something's wrong with our community. How are the young people going to get together? And then when they get together, what is the concept of Islamic marriage? Is it based upon the handheld device? Is it based on the movies? Is it based on the media? Or is it based on what the Prophet ﷺ has brought to us? And so healthy, empowered families, that not only the husband is empowered, but the wife is empowered. And the stronger the Muslim woman is, the more she has to depend upon, is the stronger the family is, not the weaker the family is. The stronger the woman is the stronger the family. Look at the example of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ with Khadija, the first to accept Islam, a strong woman who not only accepted Islam, but she empowered him. She helped him when he was trembling and shivering. She covered him up and she believed. Next, shura, mutual consultation, that we need to talk to each other, to discuss things, discuss in our families, discuss in our masjids, discuss in our communities. It's something that the young people in many parts of the Muslim world are recognizing. And this happened 2 years ago, when the youth were marching in the Arab countries. And they were innocently marching, people marching, and they were saying, Al-Shab yurid isqat al-nidam. The people want the system to come down. Why were they saying that? Because the leaders, they don't listen to you. They just do what they want to do. Shura. And this shura should lead us to unity and cooperation. And I call it operational unity. That we come together no matter what our Islamic movement is, no matter what school of thought, especially the Ahl-Sunnah wal Jama'ah, to come together and to start looking at each other, not for differences, but look for what unites us. And work with somebody, even though they might be slightly different. Work for the common good. The common good to meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, biqalbin salim, with our hearts to be sound and to be pure. Next, that we make personal action. And that starts from within us. We see evil around us. We see these situations happen. Sometimes we feel helpless. We feel helpless. The least thing we can do is make dua. That's the least thing we can do. But there's other things we can do too. The Prophet ﷺ said, "Man ra'a minkum munkaran falyughayyirhu biyadihi." If you see something wrong, change it with your hands. Do something. Change it if you can. In many cases, we're not on the level of power. Maybe you can. Then the Prophet said, فَبِلِسَانِهِ. If you can't do it with your hands, say something, your tongue. Write something. Demonstrate. Last week we demonstrated for the Rohingya Muslims. Stand up and demonstrate. Make yourself be heard. Go to the local officials here. Make our voice to be heard, so that when something happens to our brothers and sisters in other parts of the world, we can do something. Help the people who are coming out of the crisis zones. Do something. And finally, feel it in your heart. But the Prophet ﷺ described that, وَذَلِكَ أَضْعَفُ الْإِيمَانِ. He said that's the lowest, weakest form of faith. It still is faith. So there is still faith in our hearts. But now is the time. Allah has given us in this country, peace. Allah has given us safety. And we should be thankful for this. But we should, in this safety and peace that you're feeling, do something. Make some movement to connect to our brothers and sisters around the world, as our Oromo brother did in the Olympics. May Allah protect him and give him the best in this world and the hereafter. May Allah protect those people of the Oromo people in Ethiopia. May Allah protect them and help them in this struggle. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala help the people of Syria in the crisis thing, bring peace and justice to the land. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala help the Muslims in Afghanistan, in Philistine, in the Philippines, those in Yemen who are suffering. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make it easy for the Yemeni people. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala unite us and make our last words to be kalima la ilaha illallah. محمد رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم ولسائر المسلمين من كل ذنب استغفروا إنه هو الغفور الرحيم. الحمد لله الواحد الأحد الفرد الصمد الذي لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. وأصلي وأسلم على سيد المرسلين محمد بن عبد الله وآله وصحبه أجمعين. وبعد، فيا عباد الله اتقوا الله حيثما كنتم. ويقول صلى الله عليه وسلم إن لكل أمة فتنة وفتنة أمتي المال. Every nation has a trial and test, and the trial and test of this nation is in their wealth. ويقول الحق سبحانه مخبرا وآمنا إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما. اللهم صل وسلم على عبدك ورسولك محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. وارض الله عن الخلفاء الراشدين أبو بكر عمر عثمان وعلي وعنا برحمتك يا